Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master, Osiron the Eternal, for yet another video. This is an amazing discovery that I made. This is huge. This is on the same level as anything else I've discovered in this series so far. It is just stunningly mind-blowing here. Alright, what you see here is the sort of stripped down Osiron tarot spiral, and we just see the zodiac mainly. And in what's going on here, this is basically right now showing this. Okay, and this is, I call this the caduceus, the staff of Hermes, because it looks like it. In the middle here you got the planets, the rod, and then on either side you got the oscillating polarity spiraling up the column. And then when you add the court cards, it adds a whole new dynamic to it. But you're going to notice that if you follow the simple rule of feminine, masculine, and their child, or queen, king, and then the prince, it shows this going around in a counterclockwise motion. It starts out with queen, then king, then prince, then again with queen, king, prince, and then it descends with queen, king, prince, queen, king, and prince. And it keeps going in a counterclockwise processional vortex. And over here you see that with the wheel, and you can see all the court cards in their house going around in a counterclockwise motion. Well, what that represents is the precession of the equinox. In case you don't know what that is that our Earth has a wobble. Okay, and it takes roughly 26,000 years for it to complete one cycle. Okay, but the exact number they give to it is 25,920 years. Okay, now if that is the actual number, it is an extremely amazing number because it happens to reduce to 9, but it doesn't just reduce to 9. If you take these numbers, 25,920, and use the comma as a natural demarc, it separates the numbers into 7 with 25, and then 9 plus 2 is 11 for 2, and that gives you 7 and 2. And as we know, the 7 and the 2 is the blood of the body and the masculine, the primal masculine aspect of electricity, 7 and 2. But now, if you take that 25,920 year cycle and divide it by 12, it becomes 2,160 for each sign. So that's how many years it takes to get through each sign. Well, it just so happens that 2160, again if you use the comma as a demarc point, separates the numbers into two groups of 2 and then 7, which of course become 9. And you'll notice that 72 and 27, coincidentally enough, also happen to be the center of the Kundalini grid mandala. When you write out the numbers, on that video, you'll see what that is. But the very center of the mandala is 72 and 27. Well, that's what we get from processional numbers. It's absolutely stunning. And I guess as a rough way, I think some people, roughly call the precession cycle 24,000 years, and that probably is a rough number, and that's just a way so you can quickly, off the top of your head, calculate 2,000 years for each sign. But, if the exact number is, 25,920, that's really amazing for the reasons I just explained. But the precession goes backwards through the zodiac, so if this goes forward, if the zodiac goes clockwise, the precession goes counterclockwise. And what happens with the elemental order when you do that is it shows the Kundalini awakening and rising up the spine within man. It starts out with your body in Capricorn, the pure feminine Capricorn. It starts out with the body, and then the Kundalini awakens in the sacral region, okay, the fire. And then it rises up to the heart chakra, and in this first instance here, the water is in cherubic water, which is masculine and feminine. And then the next one, it rises up to the mind in Libra for the mind, for the illumined mind of man. The Kundalini is risen to the top. And then once that happens, it jumps into a new section, a new segment, and it repeats. Earth, fire, water, air, and it jumps into a new segment. Earth, fire, water, and air, and it completes and goes around. Well, you're going to notice, if you're familiar with the concept of the yugas in India, this looks a lot like it could be broken up into the yugas. I know it's not exact, it's not exactly how they say that yugas are, but the yugas are an age. And right now, in this lower section here, these two would be the Kali Yuga, and then up here where the 6 is would be the Golden Age, okay, and it goes around like that. And the reason I have this sectioned off like this, these two, because these would be the Kali Yuga, but these also, coincidentally enough, correspond to the houses of Saturn, the 2 houses of Saturn right here. It's a spear shape. I call this a spear of destiny, because these 2 houses of Saturn are in this shape, and they come to a spear point when you isolate them. And the reason I isolate them like that and call that the Kali Yuga, there's 2 reasons. If you begin the year at the conception here in Capricorn, remember this is the womb, and then the year is born again in Aries, but this is the womb. Well, if you conceive here in these 2 areas, you know, if you use a human pregnancy period as a model, usually if the baby is born within any of the first 2 trimesters, the baby's not going to live. I mean, if the baby comes out of the body within the first 2 trimesters, usually that baby's not going to live. There might be some rare exceptions, but generally speaking, the baby's going to die if it is born within these 2 houses. But then, once it gets into the 3rd trimester, which is Pisces, the baby has a pretty strong chance of surviving no matter when it's born. Okay, it might be really messed up if it's born here, but if it's born too early in here. But generally in this 3rd window is when you can it's safe to say you're going to have a successful pregnancy. Okay, and this is that. But conversely, the other way, if you go in the other way, right now you have the body, but the Kundalini hasn't yet awoken in it. Okay, but then once you break out of Saturn and get into Jupiter, and what is Jupiter? The gracious father that gives. Jupiter is jovial. Jupiter is a kind-hearted father who gives to you. And what he's giving to you in this case is the gift of fire, of life itself, with Kundalini. And now it awakes. But there's many people who live their whole lives in their body and never awaken Kundalini. They are stuck in the Saturnian realm of the Kali Yuga. And I have that said right here, the Kali Yuga, the closed cube of Saturn. Because this, what is now a diamond shape, or the spear tip of the spear of destiny, is actually, it kind of looks almost like a square or a cube. And if any life that happens or doesn't happen in here isn't going to live. People spend their lives in their bodies as a prison cell in this case, and they never live because they never awaken Kundalini. And the other way is if after you're conceived, if you come out of the body in these first 2, you're going to die. Basically, so this is what this is. This is the Saturnian realm of death. This is what this is. But it's not that Saturn's bad, because Saturn isn't bad. The only thing bad about Saturn is what the Jew did to Saturn. But that now it's going backwards. Now you're going to notice something. There's so much here. There's so much information here. I really just don't know where to begin, as I'm just shooting from the hip. But you're going to notice in the beginning of it, it breaks itself into 4 quadrants mainly. On this planetary axis, and then it equally divides with the elements on this line and then this line, and it gives itself a group of 4 quadrants. Well, when it first begins, it highlights the Queen. Okay, it begins Queen, King, Prince, and ends with Queen. Well, this is the house This is the realm of cherubic water, and that the water element, the queen, is dominant here. In the next one, it begins with the king, and it goes king, prince, queen, king, and this is the cherubic realm of fire, and fire is dominant here. The next one begins with earth, at the prince. It goes prince, queen, king, and then ends with prince again, and this realm is the realm of earth. Okay? And so it breaks down those elements. And now the only element in this scenario which isn't being used is air, in this particular one. Air doesn't get used here, but again, air is just the mind. This is more the physical aspects here, you know. But it breaks that down like that. There's also another aspect to this that you'll notice. If using again the planetary axis here, this procession hinges on the axis, and it begins here and it rises, going through its queen, king, prince, and now it's at the apex or the golden age of the Yuga cycle, and then its descent begins with water, which is queen, king, prince, and then it ends. Well, that also happens to be how the elemental order of the various signs go. In the beginning here, the cardinal signs also mirror the aspect of Kundalini awakening with man. With the cardinals are earth, fire, water, and air. And we see here earth, fire, water, and then air. The mutables go in the same as the descension. Water, air, earth, fire. And we got water, water, air, earth, and then fire. And it goes again. The cherubics form an elemental order too, but the cherubics precess. Now the first cherubic is air, and then the next one is water, fire, then earth. Air, water, fire, and earth. And that precesses backwards as well. And that also shows you the basic concepts of the numbers at their root of 0, 1, 2, 3, and then when you combine those it becomes 6 for the masculine Kundalini. And life is about exertion. You know, you were born in this world to live, to exert. Everything about this world is about effort, about exertion, about giving, about learning how to express yourself in this world through exertion. You know, obviously it's important to be receptive too. You got to be both, but you got to be receptive and then you exert. It's both. It's a two-way stream, and you have to be good at both. Now, I want to highlight a point right now about the Osiron Tarot Spiral. If you remember how this axis gets constructed, it's also, the planets on each side are the same, but it also, the tarot cards that correspond here create the 3-6 axis. The first card and the second card become 3, okay, and this 3 gives birth to the 6 as it goes around, okay. And then once the 6 is born, then it begins to exert, and that 6 was derived from the cards that go here. 7 and 8 become 15, the devil, which is 6. Now it exerts. And then as it exerts to go back around, once it comes back to here again, if you remember the houses of the tarot cards for both of these houses become 10 and then 1. And if you add that 1 to the 6 up here, it becomes 7, which is the blood. Remember the blood, the spirit enters the blood or the fluids of the body first. Okay? And that is the blood of Jesus. Because remember, the spear of destiny, if you know what that is, the spear of destiny is supposed to be the spear that pierced the side of Jesus as he was on the cross. Okay, that's what the spear of destiny is. And this is the spear point, piercing, and it shows itself piercing the blood of Jesus. And so, and it's going down from 6, 2, 3 to form 7, 2. So that's reminiscent of the phallus, of the masculine seeking the feminine in this case, in giving life, and the first spark of life is in the blood. And on the Osiron Tarot Spiral, that would be the first card here that enters the waters after the High Priestess. After the spiral goes around, the first card to enter here is the Tower. Well, the Tower is a fucking ejaculating phallus. That's what the Tower is. That's why it's blowing off the top of its crown on the Waite Smith deck. That's why the Tower blows up. The Tower doesn't blow up because God's mad at it. The Tower blows up is because it's a phallus that is ejaculating into the waters of the woman. And the next card after that, it begins the gestation period all over again. That's why the Tower is there. You know, it's the devil. In the last card, if you remember, the last card in Sagittarius is the devil. Well, that devil's cock is entering into the waters of the High Priestess and ejaculating in her, creating life. So the Tower is not only an ejaculating phallus, but it's also the initial spark of life, too. That's what the Tower means. The Tower isn't this ill, foreboding thing. And then you notice the spear point's driving downward. Well, that's 623. Bam, driving downward. So that's what that's doing. This is just absolutely amazing. I think I got to this, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Yeah, the elemental orders of the cardinal, mutable, and cherubic signs. The cardinals are ascension, the mutables are descension, and the cherubics precess backwards. And all of it shows the awakening of Kundalini or the rise of man. So right now, you know, this is the Kali Yuga. Mankind itself is in Kali Yuga. Our world right now is in Kali Yuga. It rises up through the zodiac in a backwards fashion. It gets to the golden age, which here is Leo and then water. And then it goes back down, all the way down, until it dies again back into the cube of Saturn, where it dies again in the cycle of man ends, the destruction. Now here's a bit of sort of bad news, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. Everyone says we entered the age of Aquarius, okay? And everyone also says that that was a time we break out of the Kali Yuga and begin our rise to the Golden Age again. Well, if this chart is accurate, we haven't even experienced Kali Yuga yet. Because some people say we just entered the age of Aquarius, and the 2,000-year age before this was the age of Jesus, and that was Pisces, and the time before that would have been the time of the Egyptians, the Aries, the Ram, or maybe the Jew, because the Aries, the Ram, and before here may have been the time of the Egyptians with the Hathor, the cow goddess. In here, it's something like that, but this could be ancient Egypt, this could be pre-Roman times with Aries and the Jews and all that shit. And then the time of Jesus is Pisces, and they're saying we just entered Aquarius. Well, guess what? We are in the beginning of the death knell for humanity. If this chart is accurate, what this means is one life cycle has already begun. We've already had our golden age, and now we've already descended, and now we are at the very end of the line. We are at the time of the ultimate. Basically, you could view that as Armageddon. You could view that as the time when humanity destroys itself. If this is accurate, we very well could be living in an age right now where this is the end for the world for the world as we know it. This very well could be the end of days that we just entered here. You know what I mean? Everything basically hinges on how accurate is the estimation that we are in the age of Aquarius. How far, but it doesn't matter how close we are. But you know, if we just entered the age of Aquarius, we still have 2,000 years of suffering to go before the world ends and is born anew again. But you know, with the way our life is now, look at the world we live in. Most of the people are so fucking stupid. They have no idea that they are owned by the Jew. They have no idea they're slaves. A lot of the world is just, especially here in the U.S., the people have no clue. All they do is go to work every day, come home and eat, stuff their face, and watch TV and go to sleep. They don't know anything. Most people are so ridiculous. They have their emotions stimulated by the news. They freak out because the news presents a narrative that they want them to believe, which happens to be run and controlled by the Jew. And we are living in a time, basically, for a lot of aspects, hell on earth. I mean, the human race is on the brink of destruction. We are on the brink of World War III. Everyone's fighting. Everyone hates each other. No one is healthy. Everyone's sick. Everyone's fat. Everyone's disgusting. Everyone is angry. Everyone's, all the negatives you can associate with it. Now, that's not true for everybody. A lot of people are, but still, people who are awake have to live in a world with all those people. I always said, the punishment, not always, but I said recently that the price for waking up in this world is waking up in this world, because everyone around you is in a fucking comatose state. They have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what illumination is. And we live in right now an age of the atheist. And atheism, as I said before, is symptomatic of the effects of Abrahamism, cutting humanity off from the divine sources, Kundalini. I mean, most atheists, ironically, are proud to be atheists, but that's one of the worst things you can be, because it is basically an admission that you are cut off from divine source, and you don't even know it. That's the thing. That's why it's so bad. Because Abrahamism in the beginning with Christianity and Islam and all that had to use a spiritual vehicle to poison mankind. But now that has been going on for so long, 2,000 years of Jesus, now people are just being born without even the slightest conception of God or divinity or Kundalini or holy power. They're born dead, they're born living zombies, and they die living zombies. And this is showing us here. They never get out of the 10, out of the cube of Saturn. They never awaken Kundalini. They are born here and they die here. The same thing the other way. They are born here and they die here. They never leave this spear tip of the spear of destiny, which is the houses of Saturn or the Kali Yuga. This fractalizes out in all the ways. And one thing about the spear of destiny, the spear of destiny at one point was acquired by Adolf Hitler. And I see you see my swastika here again, which is an ancient Aryan symbol. But look at how the swastika is. It shows itself going, spiraling in what would be a counterclockwise motion. In this angular position, it's set on the cherubic signs. And the cherubic signs precess, to give you this code, the cherubic signs precess, and this swastika is shown moving in a processional direction, or a counterclockwise processional vortex. Also, one last thing, one quick thing. This over here, this says Sacred Universe, and this shows the court cards, how they apply to the Tree of Life, or the true tree. You got the Queen, the King, and then the Prince here, but then you have the other side of the Prince here, which is the Earth, and it shows the interchange. So this is Jesus, this is Krishna, this is you interacting with the divinity that is, and you can see it's in the shape of an upside down triangle when you do that. It looks sort of like a sacred yoni of a woman, and then it gives birth to the world here. This is what this is through the court cards. So the title of this is The Procession of the Court in the Yuga Kingdoms. Because this is broken down elementally into Yuga sections. And each one highlights the cherubic element that's in there. So there may be more. There's so much going on here. This video may have been premature. I was sort of contemplating just sitting on it and waiting to do it tomorrow, but I'm kind of hot for it right now, and I want to get it out there because, but I think I captured the main gist of what's going on, is that the court cards in the tarot represent a processional counterclockwise aspect of the zodiac that reveals the precession of the equinox, and it uses the axis of the Great Lord as its foundational, pivotal thing. So that is that. Thank you, and namaste.